It seems like every month a company drops another audiophile device with a jacked up price, and every month there's a downpour of online reviews praising the newest products. Whether it's Topping or Shanling or SMSL or FIO or Drop, it's a never-ending torrential rain of newer gear. And at some point it just starts looking the same, with the same features and the same outrageous prices. But today, I have something special, something different, something that might be useful. Well, not one thing, actually two, from two different companies. The first is a portable balanced DAC with XLR outputs. The second is a portable headphone amplifier made specifically for high-impedance headphones like the 600-ohm Beyerdynamic DT880. Let's talk about the Soncoz LAQXD1 and the Sound Devices HX-3. I want to give a little background about how I got to these products. After I bought my 600-ohm DT880, I was rather surprised and overjoyed with its performance. Properly amplified with an amp that has high output impedance, these headphones sing like few others. But I did not want to be tethered to my desk to use these headphones. Now everyone will laugh at this fleeting hope of mine. Of course you can't drive the DT880 from a portable device. Or so goes the common understanding. This is true. The 600-ohm DT880 cannot be driven by any DAP I have, and no portable amplifier in my arsenal truly does this headphone any justice. But I wasn't convinced. I wanted to find something, and I had a strong suspicion somebody out there thought like me. I searched for high-impedance portable amplifiers and got the typical litany of amps that don't fit the requirements. After several days of searching, I came across the Sound Devices HX-3, and this was it. This is the amp I was looking for. I bought the HX-3 from Gotham Sounds. But then I thought, gee, I'd love to have a truly balanced DAC with XLR output that's also portable. And you all will laugh. Of course there is no portable DAC with XLR outputs. You, of course, have a point. The closest thing would be the hip DAC, for which I could get a 4.4mm to dual XLR cable, or I could use the Zen DAC. But these don't really solve my problem. The hip DAC's 4.4mm output can indeed be used to output to XLR using a cable, but I didn't want an amplifier outputting to the HX-3. That's daisy chaining amps, which I am not a fan of. Furthermore, the Zen DAC needs to be connected to a power source, either to a computer or a wall socket, so it's not really portable. This began my second search. I felt there was something out there because I could not be alone in my reasoning, or so I hoped. And thus, I found the Soncoz. This is a portable DAC of rather unique nature. It has fully balanced XLR output, and it's portable. I bought the Soncoz. The HX-3 is about $450. The Soncoz is about $200. Sound Devices manufactures recording gear for professionals. They are based in the United States. They make their products in Wisconsin. They have been selling the HX-3 since 2001. That's right, this little amp has been around for nearly 20 years, sitting right under our audiophile noses. Several years ago, Sound Deluxe stole the HX-3 design without any apparent alterations. This caused a bit of a concern for Sound Devices. Consequently, you can purchase their gear only through authorized sellers. Soncoz is a Chinese company. I have no idea where they came from, but rumor has it that the person who designed the audeze tone board works with Soncoz. So we've got a well-established company in the United States that caters exclusively to professionals, and we have a new Chinese brand that seems to fit the audiophile group. Quite the match, isn't it? The HX-3 has 3 headphone outputs. Each is independent of the other. Each has its own volume pot that is separate from the others. You can connect headphones of mismatched impedances without concern. The HX-3 has balanced XLR input and also accepts RCA input via RCA to quarter-inch cable or an RCA to 3.5mm cable with a 3.5mm to a quarter-inch adapter. It gets a little cumbersome this way. There's a switch to listen in stereo or mono mode. And there's an on-off switch that doubles as a power selector. This is because the HX-3 can be powered by 2 AA batteries or a standard 12-volt power adapter. It's your choice. Sound Devices says that the HX-3 can run for about 10 hours with fully charged AA batteries. I was able to use it for 5 hours straight without any noticeable loss of volume. The 3 volume knobs are made of metal. They have good resistance and you won't accidentally bump them to blow your eardrums. There's one green LED which turns on when the unit is active. Almost everything on the HX-3 is metal, from the casing to the knobs to the battery cover. The 2 switches are plastic, which is a little disappointing. However, the switches are recessed and you should not break them unless you try very hard. The HX-3 has an output impedance of 200 ohms. It's got a frequency amplification of 10 Hz to 50,000 Hz. It has an amplification of 34 decibels from XLR to the headphone jacks and 35 decibels from the quarter-inch. The HX-3 weighs just under 1.5 pounds with the batteries inserted. The Soncoz, on the other hand, comes in 3 colors. It's got an aluminum housing. It has XLR, RCA, and coaxial outputs. It has USB, coaxial, and optical inputs. And it also has a USB-C port for power. Soncoz says specifically you should not try to power this DAC with your computer's USB port, as that does not provide sufficient power. Instead, Soncoz recommends a wall adapter or a power bank. And I assure you, a portable battery pack works perfectly with the Soncoz. The DAC has an ESS Sabre ES9038Q2M chip that can render 32-bit PCM and up to DSD512 natively. And the Soncoz has another trick up its sleeve. Its USB data port can be connected to virtually any device, Windows, Mac, Android, iOS. It's plug and play for everything. However, if you want to use the full resolution, you will need to download a proprietary driver that is available on the Soncoz website. It's an easy installation without any real issues whatsoever. Unfortunately, this driver is available only for Windows. Macs will have to use whatever drivers Apple automatically installs. Audio Science Review looked at this DAC a few months ago and were impressed with the numbers. Of course, numbers mean very little if the actual performance is bad. Both the HX-3 and Soncoz work perfectly. Let's talk about the HX-3 first. For my initial test, I paired the HX-3 with my now modded 600 ohm DT880. And I want to give a big shout out to Matt, who has an Etsy store dedicated to modding headphones. He generously offered to mod my DT880 and did a brilliant job. A link to his store is down in the description section. I connected the amp to the Soncoz for the entire test period. I powered the device both through fully charged batteries and through a compatible power adapter. Again, the link to a power adapter that I used is down in the description. I played music from Amazon Music HD and also my FLAC library. Speaking of the HX-3 only, and disregarding the DAC section altogether, the amplifier is neutral. Its amplification is clean and noiseless. Of course, it might be rather difficult to pick up noise in a 600 ohm headphone. So I plugged in my cheap pair of Philips Uptown headphones, which are 32 ohms. With the music playing and cranking through the volume, I heard no noise. With no music playing and turning the volume knob from mute to maximum, I heard zero noise. And I had the same experience through the 600 ohm DT880. The 880 is properly driven with this amp. As I said before, the amp has an output impedance of 200 ohms. This is twice the output impedance of the Beyerdynamic A2 and A20, amplifiers that Beyerdynamic says is a good match for their 600 ohm headphones. I do not want to rehash output impedance versus raw power. I did that already, and you can watch that video if you don't know my position on the subject. I want to emphasize that I am not saying that greater and greater output impedance will make the 880 sound better and better. In other words, the HX-3's 200 ohm output impedance does not make the 880 sound twice as good as the A2 or A20's 100 ohm output impedance. It is possible there are some audible differences between 100 ohm and 200 ohm output impedance, but I do not know if that is the case, and I have not yet tested that. Consequently, let's just leave those issues to the side for later. What I can say is that the DT880 gets incredibly loud very early on the volume pod. 7 o'clock is mute, 5 o'clock is maximum, and around 10 o'clock the 880 became plenty loud. If I increased volume, then the 880 became unbearably loud. The other two headphone jacks have independent amplification, as I mentioned before. You can use 2 more 600 ohm DT880s and get all 3 plenty loud, or so sound devices suggest. I can't test that since I don't have 2 more such headphones lying around. Nevertheless, plugging in other headphones at the same time does work, and the volume doesn't decrease on headphone 1 if the HX-3 is also driving headphone 2 or headphone 3. These are all independent of each other. I went through my test playlist to get my bearings with the HX-3 and the DT880 combo. I listened to Mountains by Hans Zimmer, Pure Water, Why Am I Like This, When You Walk Into the Room, and Flight from the City. On Mountains, I heard the sub-bass rumble present in the song, but it was not overwhelming. With the DAC section outputting maximum volume and controlling volume on the HX-3, I left the volume pot at 10 o'clock. At this volume, I was able to hear the sub-bass rumble with quick decay. There was excellent separation of instruments and no distortion. When the crescendo hit, the organ was powerful but did not overwhelm the other instruments. The rumble was palpable, the ear cups shook, and the clarity was obvious. On Pure Water, the vocals were crystal clear with their mastered sparkle. The bass was fast and impactful, though not bloated. The vocals were at least 1 step ahead of the mix. When the sub-bass hit, it sounded like a well-tuned subwoofer. There was no harshness or distortion. In Why Am I Like This by Orla Gartland, I again heard crystal clear mids. Orla has natural sibilance, which was recreated but without becoming harsh. The acoustic guitar, Orla's voice, and drum all sounded separate with natural timbre. And When You Walk Into the Room, the drums play immediately along with an electric guitar. Both instruments are clear and separate. A few moments later, the primary vocalist appears, and she sounds about 1 step ahead of the mix, clear and distinct. When the entire mix begins to play, around 50 seconds into the song, there's no distortion, no harshness, no peakiness, no graininess. The primary vocalist remains center and obvious. There is, however, some melding between the primary and secondary vocalists. In Flight from the City, the piano had slightly longer decay than natural. The piano and cello melded slightly. Neither instrument sounded off timbre, and I could hear the micro details in the mix. The piano sounded as if it was about 5 feet away from me. The piano sounded a little thick, as if there was a bedsheet draped over it. Some people will like this sound signature, and others won't. What is evident, however, is that the HX-3 does not distort the piano, at least not through the DT880. As for soundstage, it appears that the 880 was being sufficiently driven because I heard the same amount of wide soundstage that these headphones are good at. The HX-3 does not have any vents. I listened to it continuously for about 5 hours, driving the 880s, and the unit was cool to the touch the whole time. Switching to RCA via quarter-inch connection did not alter the sound signature at all, nor did it seem to influence how loud the headphones got. Without a digital display, it's hard to tell exactly how loud is loud, but over RCA, I seem to achieve the same loudness at approximately 10 o'clock. Switching from battery power to DC power, I heard a very slight difference in sound quality. It appeared that the 880 got just a little better amplification. The bass decay was just a tiny bit faster, and instruments seemed to be just a tiny bit clearer. This could all have been my imagination, of course, but after repeatedly testing, I could not shake the feeling that the DC power makes the HX-3 perform slightly better. Let's talk about the Soncoz. This is a very neutral DAC. I paired it initially with the HX-3, then switched to the Liquid Spark. I am far more familiar with the Liquid Spark and its sound signature than I am with the HX-3, obviously. I'm happy to report that the Liquid Spark sounded as neutral as before. It was previously connected to the SHIT Modi. A/B testing DACs is a little difficult since it requires switching cables and selecting output through windows. But after about 20 minutes of going back and forth, I can say that the Soncoz seemed to have better instrument separation and vocal clarity. The Modi is a very good DAC in its own right, and the differences between the two devices were not all that great. The Soncoz simply had a little better instrument separation, a little more detail, and overall, better clarity. I tested this using the DT880 and the Philips Uptown. Moreover, you can have both the XLR and RCA ports active at the same time. In fact, I don't think you have a choice in the matter. In other words, I plugged the XLR from the Soncoz to the HX-3 and at the same time had the Liquid Spark connected via RCA. The Soncoz sent signal out both at once. Although you can select digital input signal between coaxial, optical, and USB, you do not have the option of selecting either RCA or XLR output. If you choose to connect via both outputs, you'll just have to mute the signal at the amp section. The Soncoz uses the ES9038 Q2M DAC. For reference, this DAC is implemented in the Earman TR amp, which costs $250, Iyun X1S, which is $300, Topping DX7S, which is $400, SMSL M8A, which is $250, and of course the SMSL SU8, which is $250. Now, some of these devices are amp DAC combos, so their price should be taken into context. I have the SU8, and I have used it for the 789 ever since I purchased that amplifier. I like the SU8 and have recommended it as the cheapest fully balanced neutral DAC that I have used. I had a chance to test between the SU8 and the Soncoz. Both devices have the same output and input options. They also support the same audio resolution, PCM up to 32 bits at 764 kHz and DSD512. Of course, the input determines the level of resolution you achieve. I spent about 20 minutes going back and forth using the HX-3 and the 880 in conjunction. I heard no sonic differences between the two DACs. Maybe far more sensitive headphones or a different amp might reveal some minor sonic differences. The SU8 has almost the same functionality as the Soncoz. However, the SU8 also has 9 audio profiles which are distinct from the typical filter settings baked into the ES9038 DAC chip. The Soncoz only has the filter settings that are part of the original chip design. Frankly, the SU8's sound coloration settings don't make a whole lot of difference. Moreover, as you experiment with them, you'll quickly realize it might be a whole lot more enjoyable to leave everything as standard sound profile. Nevertheless, the fact that these additional 9 sound profiles are available on the SU8 must be given some amount of weight. As for sound signature, the Soncoz is as neutral as you can expect. I do not hear a bass roll-off or treble spike. I do not hear any harshness or distortion. As you know, Sabre DACs have a reputation for being far too analytical and treble-friendly. But the ES9038 is indeed well implemented both in the SU8 and in the Soncoz. I think it's safe to say that neither DAC will affect the sound. If you want an unadulterated signal from your source to your amp and headphones, the SU8 and Soncoz are equally adept at doing this. At this point, I would tell you that the Soncoz is merely a slightly cheaper SU8 without a remote and sound coloration settings. Although this is true, there is more to it than that. I think the Soncoz has carved a niche for itself, one that I think could be rather interesting. The Soncoz is lighter and smaller than the SU8. Both devices are built rather well. But the SU8 requires DC power to work. It's not a portable unit, but the Soncoz is. In fact, the Soncoz was designed for mobile devices and use with battery banks. To test this, I plugged the Soncoz into my 25,000 mAh battery pack. I switched back and forth between this pack and a standard 5-volt USB power adapter. Both means of power worked flawlessly. Once plugged into power, the Soncoz stayed powered on. There is no on-off switch, merely a mute button. The Soncoz is also compatible with mobile devices. I plugged my LG V30 into the Soncoz and the phone output audio directly to the Soncoz. No software was required. I tried the same tactic with the Sony NW-ZX507. Once plugged in, the Sony asked if I want to connect to the Soncoz. I clicked yes, and the audio immediately sent to the Soncoz. This worked with the Sony Music app and with streaming services. No fiddling was required. I then plugged in my FiiO M3 Pro. Now before you do this, make sure that the USB output is set to data within the M3 settings app. Connect the DAP to the Soncoz and the M3 will show that it is connected to a device. Play music and the Soncoz will do its work. I tried 24-bit audio and a few DSD files that I do have, and both rendered through the Soncoz with, of course, the driver. And the playback software showed that the DAC was compatible. There is a caveat though. The Soncoz is plug and play, but you're not going to get full resolution without the Tessicon custom driver. If you want to enjoy your 32-bit files and DSD512, you will need to install the Tessicon driver on your Windows machine and connect via USB. Coaxial and optical inputs are limited to 24-bit at 192 kHz resolution. But let's be frank, that's more high resolution than the CDs you've got stacked in your basement or the 90s MP3 files you downloaded using LimeWire. The Soncoz will not be powered through the USB data port, and it doesn't matter if you connect to a computer, phone, or DAP. You will need external power, either through DC power or a battery bank. On the one hand, this is good for the mobile device, since you don't drain its battery. On the other hand, it means that you always have to be tethered to either a battery bank or power adapter. A built-in battery would have been perfect. The ability to switch between an internal battery or a battery bank or DC power would have opened the Soncoz to a host of uses, but that is not the situation. Neither device is for the average person. You have to be of a particular mindset to buy either of these devices. The Sound Devices HX-3 is for professional audio customers. It's not for the typical audiophile who has a pair of planar magnetic headphones connected to their 789. The HX-3 does not cater to low impedance headphones. It's for pro headphones, or so I gather. Consequently, if your headphone collection is limited to anything under 250 ohms, I think you should probably stay away. The HX-3's usefulness to professionals is obvious. If you are a producer or artist, the HX-3 might be the only amp you actually need. You don't need to have DC power as long as you have a fresh set of batteries. You can take it into the field or the studio. It's small enough to be portable. It's robust enough to handle roughness. It is impeccably designed for ease of use. But as I say this, I also envision some audiophiles who can benefit from this amp, and I will give you two examples. First, if you subscribe to my conclusion that the 600 ohm DT880 needs higher output impedance instead of more raw power, then you've got your work cut out for you when you try to find a cheap amp that does just that. And anyone who wants to use the 600 ohm DT880 on the go, well, your options are limited even more. So an audiophile who wants to use something like the 880 and wants the option to go mobile, the HX-3 is the only alternative to a desktop amp that I have found. The second example involves something that I'm doing. I am gathering a select group of high impedance headphones. So far, I have the 600 ohm DT880, the T1, and the DT990. I have the 300 ohm Sennheiser HD800S and HD6XX. And I have the 250 ohm DT770 and DT880, which I will receive soon. I can somehow justify the HX-3 because I collect headphones, and this is a collection of headphones that I want to test with amps that have high output impedance. The more I use the 600 ohm DT880, the more I am convinced they do in fact require high output impedance. Unfortunately, high impedance amplifiers are not cheap. The cheapest one that I know of is the Beyerdynamic 820 with the HX-3 next in line. So, in my example, the number of high impedance headphones I have signifies that I am both insane and may get the best performance from an amp that has high output impedance for those specific headphones. The HX-3 is not a niche product if you are a professional, but it is both a niche product and a silly purchase if you are merely an audiophile. You get much better value with other products, especially cheaper ones. But if you have high impedance headphones and want something portable, the HX-3 fits that very specific need. The Soncoz is not a niche product as the HX-3. Look, I know I said it carves a niche for itself, but not really. Here's a great amp for desktop use. It's just that you can use it on the go as well. I don't know of any other small factor DAC that has 3 digital inputs, fully balanced XLR output, and RCA output. Add on top the ability to run the device from a battery bank, and the ability to use your DAP or phone as a transport without the hassle of compatible drivers or software. Well, the list of devices that meet these criteria is pretty short. In fact, I think only the Soncoz fits it. The Soncoz doesn't have the SU8's remote or sound coloration options. Perhaps those things matter to some and justify the extra $50 for the SMSL. But the Soncoz's uniqueness cannot be ignored, especially if you get basically the same functionality as the SU8, except cheaper. Anybody who is in the market for a fully balanced DAC should not overlook the Soncoz. Yeah, it's an unknown brand, so there's some apprehension involved. But if the Soncoz piques your interest, then I can recommend it. Sure, with a little bit more money you can get the same DAC chipset along with an amplifier. But this product really is for those who want balanced signal output through XLR on the go. While the big brands are fighting each other with ever more expensive DACs, along comes Soncoz well under the radar. Things, however, could be improved with this DAC, don't get me wrong. I don't understand why there isn't an on-off switch. I don't know why I should have to unplug the power source to turn the device off, especially when it's connected to a battery bank. By the way, speaking of battery bank, I showed that my battery bank was around 90% full when I initially connected to the Soncoz. 3 hours later, the battery level was down to about 76%. This is a 14% discharge in 3 hours. 2 hours after that, then it became 67%. Assuming that the power draw remains about the same throughout the day, you can easily get all-day functionality using the battery bank that I have used. Soncoz says that the user interface to select the digital filters is intuitive. I don't think so. I think you will have to look at the manual many times before you start remembering what each light combination means. And those filters do so little that it's not really a feature I consider worthwhile. This isn't specific to the Soncoz. I have never heard any DAC whose digital filters make a lick of meaningful difference. I also wish that the Soncoz had a built-in battery. It didn't need to be 25,000 mAh. It could have been just 2,000 mAh. Surely the chassis is big enough for that. And if Soncoz put in the effort to include XLR output, it should have also provided a balanced 4.4mm output option on top. The fact that the Soncoz does not have a remote is of little relevance, I think. I rarely use the SU8's remote, and a remote for the smaller, portable Soncoz would not really add anything. Does the Soncoz do what the company says? Actually, yeah. They don't make any bold claims. The Soncoz plays high-resolution audio. It's small, it has a simple interface, it outputs signal cleanly, it is portable, and made for portable use. Only time will tell if this DAC is reliable. The lack of reviews about this product means you're basically shooting in the dark. A large user base allows for a sample of opinions that help you better understand if a piece of gear is right for you. But since we don't have that, I'll do the test for you. I plan to compare the HX-3 to other amps and the Soncoz to other DACs. So far, both are easy to like.